Well, this is Shane at WKXV for Information Line. We're joined in studio today with author Timothy W. Tron. We're going to discuss a little bit about his book, Bruecke to Heaven, Children of Light. He's in town for a book signing. It's going to be held over at Barnes&Noble on Kingston Pike. That's on Kingston Pike between Winston Road and Downtown West Boulevard. It's coming up this Saturday, July 27th. From 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We appreciate you stopping in with us, Timothy. Won't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get into the book after we find out about you. I know you've joined with your family here, Cheryl, daughter Mary, and son Jonathan. We don't want to leave out Jonna, your sister. She's here too. We learn a little bit about you, and just don't be afraid of the mic.
Okay, well, thank you again for having us. We really appreciate it. And WKXV, I've listened to you over in North Carolina, where we actually live now, in Goldston area, which is near Raleigh.
Great.
We came here again, like you said, for the book signing Saturday at the Barnes&Noble there, and they were kind enough to also have us. And of course, we brought along our instruments today, play a little music for y'all, and just visit a little spell here and talk about the book, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in southern Indiana, and growing up, we had pretty Spartan lifestyle. Lived on a farm, and we had a strange last name, and we always pronounced it. It don't matter how you say it. Tron's good, but they always told us to say Tron, and so we wondered about that because it was so different.
Yeah.
And but we knew my grandfather came from Germany. Much we were sure of, but we had no idea where, and none of that information was available at that time.
Sure.
And so as kids, we stood around a tree and the shade in the summertime and speculate, well, we might have come from royalty. There might be a castle with our name on it.
Yeah.
And I had a cousin, he said, no, Tron's too much like throne. It's probably a toilet.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, that's right. That's probably all we have for royalty is a throne. So anyway, that's kind of where we left it. And then an aunt of mine did a genealogy research. And as a housewarming gift, she gave me this binder full of investigations she had done on our family tree, and found the town in Germany where we came from. And it's called Waldorf. And it was from there, years later, we had no plans to do this, but we decided to go to Germany and went to that town. And before I went there, I emailed the museum, and they asked me what day and time I could be there. And I had never been out of the United States, let alone to a foreign country in Germany, This was before Google and MapQuest and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
Anyway, they gave us a 4-hour window. Be there on Tuesday between 12 and 4. Well, Tuesday came, and my wife was born in Germany, so we went to the town that she grew up in first because she was an Army brat, and that was Schaffenburg. We were having so much fun that day. That morning she says, aren't we supposed to go to that town where you grew up? And I said, where your family came from? I said, well, yeah. She says, well, I think we should go. And wives are always right.
Of course.
So we made it there, but it was like the last 15 minutes of that 4-hour window, and we pulled up to a grocery store. I had no idea where the museum was in this town, and walked inside, and a lady at the counter, I said to her in my best German, I said, could you tell me where the museum is? She pulled me out of the store, out into the street, traffic going by both ways, and started shouting in German which way to go, and I'm pretty sure I got most of it, and the thing she said last was, hurry up, I think they're waiting.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? So we got there, pulled up, 5 minutes to go, ran inside the front door, not a soul around, in a big foyer, and off to the side was this door, just kind of ajar, and I heard voices coming out of it. Walked over there in this big conference room, this big long table, and all these people sitting around it like they was having a meeting. And I said, excuse me, would this be the Heimat Museum? And a little man in the back of the room stood up and says, would you be Herr Tron?
Yeah.
And I said, yes. And they all stood up and said, we have been waiting. The newspaper will be back tomorrow.
Huh.
And that's where I found out the rest of the story. The rest of the story being that I was Waldensian. Now, I had no idea what that meant at that point in time. That went over my head like a bad joke. I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what country is that? I mean, I'm pretty bad at geography, but I at least know most of my European countries. They said, it's not a country. It's a people.
Yeah.
So they walked me into the museum, and before we had gotten there, the week before, they had done a newspaper article on us arriving with my genealogy information they asked me to bring, and on the wall was my name. And there was a space above my name that went all the way back to the great-great-great-grandfather that had come to the United States. And then, from that name, it kept going back and back and back to the Alps, to the Cochin region, and back to the time of the Apostle Paul. And that's when I realized there was something more to this than I had ever dreamed or ever thought possible. And that was the day I began my journey back to Christ, to regain the faith that I had had all along but never really knowingly practiced. And to that day, to this day, has been a journey of rediscovery and just getting closer to God, to my heart. And as I wrote the book, I at times would just pray about it because I had no idea that I was ever going to write a book. And when I started putting pen to paper, it was because part of this story that I tell in the book is because whoever wins the war writes the history.
Sure.
Well, in this case, the Catholic Church won the war, so to speak, with regard to the Reformation. That's what the book is kind of about. Well, it's pretty much about, because it starts in the year 1170. And from there forward, it tells a story of the people, which a lot of stories have been written about Waldensians, and these are the people I'm talking about their struggle and their faith, and how Martin Luther based what he did in the Reformation based upon Waldensian and people like that, Huguenots. But my book was about from a perspective of what would make these people struggle for hundreds of years, over 30 wars they fought in, to preserve the Word, because they received the Word of God directly from the apostles.
Sure.
Memorized it, passed it on when they could barely read or write, and eventually would write Bibles by hand. And because they were persecuted by the Roman Catholic Church and put to death, burnt at the stake, all kinds of things, horrible things, they had to memorize it and hide the Scripture. So if they came to your house to visit you and were witnessing to you, and if you were receptive and they felt comfortable that you weren't going to turn them in, they'd leave you with a loaf of bread. And inside that loaf of bread would be baked a handwritten Bible, or a book of the Bible. And that was your word to keep. And once that bread was eaten, it was like the flesh. It's perishable.
Sure.
The word remained.
That's fascinating. And you've touched on some of the stuff that interests me all my life, history, heritage, and I've never traced mine back that far, but it is a very fascinating story and seems like it would be a great read. So I know the book is fiction, but based on historical fact.
Correct.
And I think anytime you can marry the two, it brings it to life in a lot of ways. So go on a little bit about the book, and I understand you have some characters. Jacob,
correct, very good.
And I'm at a loss for the other two characters that I was reading up on.
Well, his grandfather Arctos is probably one of the other main characters, yes. And Jacob and Arctos wind up, for practical purposes, leave the valley to start their missionary work. And up to this time in the story, they really haven't left the valleys. A long time before these people decided to leave the valleys, one guy decided to leave, and his name was Peter. Mm. Now, Waldensians, historically, and this is the factual part, they're called Waldensians because they're based on the guy named Peter Waldo. Now, that's history.
Sure.
And Peter Waldo, and my story is that if you were going to come up with something that was going to inflame the Catholic Church that you could be put to death for, would you use your real name?
Why, no.
So hundreds of years before that Peter Waldo, there was another Peter who came out of the valleys to start his missionary work and his faith-based evangelism based on what his memorization skills were of the Bible. Some of these people memorized books, but other people, of those people that were very talented and blessed with the gift, memorized the entire Bible. That was also truth. And so this Peter left the valleys and was caught, persecuted, burnt to the stake, and they called him Peter of the Valley, or how they pronounced it over there, Valdo.
Yeah.
Peter Waldo.
I got you.
So that's where the Peter Waldo came from.
And we're talking about the region that now is modern-day France and Italy.
Right.
In the Alps area.
Right,
exactly. And it's based around the 12th century.
Correct.
The latter part of the 12th century.
And as history tells us, they weren't actually, the edict that Martin Luther nailed to the church door, I believe it was 1516, my date might be wrong on that, and they still were persecuted even after that point in time, up until the 1600s. And a band of 1,000 left Switzerland where they had been exiled and fought their way. This is the actual history. Fought their way back into the valleys, and only 300 survived to reclaim their homeland, their Vaudois, if you would.
Gotcha.
And because of that, Napoleon said these are some of the most courageous fighters he'd ever seen because they beat a force of 4,000 with 300. So God was on their side.
Oh, absolutely.
And as I wrote this book, I'd get stuck and I'd say, God, show me the way, and I'd either have a dream or God would just speak to me as I would try to start writing something that I thought should be in the book. He would change how I wrote it as I was writing it. So,
well, I'm looking forward to getting into the book because, like I say, those are subjects that are near and dear to my heart. I've always have been a history buff ever since I was a kid, and those kind of facts just kind of stick in my head. And my wife says I'm full of a cesspool of useless knowledge. But I like that stuff, and some people can keep sports scores in their brain. Some people, I have no ability to that kind of stuff. But history and religious facts, I love to learn about religion, all kinds of religion. But I'm glad you stopped in to tell us. I know you're going to be here in Knoxville, but I'd like to hit a couple of other dates. I believe the Festival of Faith, and is it Valdez, North Carolina?
Valdez, yes.
Valdez, North Carolina, August 9th.
Correct.
And then it looks like you're going to be at the Renaissance Fair in Huntsville, North Carolina on November 16th and 17th. And we'll give those dates out for our listeners that might be listening via the internet. We have listeners all over the United States since we've opened that up. And I know you're going to be here. I'm going to hit that other date here. You're going to be here at the Barnes&Noble on Kingston Pike. That's on Kingston Pike between Winston Road and Downtown West Boulevard this Saturday, July 27th. I encourage everyone out there to go by and pick this book up. Where are some of the other places they might be able to access the book?
You can get it, of course, online, Barnes&Noble, Amazon.com. Most Christian bookstores online, Lifeway Christian Bookstore, they have it as well. You can order it through them. Any of the online places you can get it through them.
Is it available in digital form also?
Yes, you can also get it through Westbow Press. I know for sure is the publisher who published the book for me. They're a division of Thomas Nelson.
Well, I'm just all catching up on that technology. I didn't even know they was going to be typing when I got here at my age, but I know there's a lot of people that use the readers, the Nooks or whatever you have. But we're gonna go over the date again. I'll give those other dates in the other cities and let you get set up in the studio with your family. Unless you want to hit something else that we might not have discussed. I want to let you get in everything you want to get in.
Well, thank you very much. Ephesians 5:8 says that we were once darkness, but now we are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light in the Lord, because the light consists of all righteousness, truth, and goodness. And so that's what I would like to bring to your readers today, to remember that God's children were once in darkness and now they're in light, and everybody can reach the light if they accept Christ in their life. And so I reach out to those readers that might question this. This book wasn't written by me, it was written by God. And when people read this, some say, well, this is fiction. Well, a lady said to me, a very wise lady, says, well, religion isn't fiction, it's religion. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And she said, a lot of people told me this. I've read your book, and this is one thing I realized as I wrote it. Said, would this be something they would believe? Is this the event that's going to happen next, in the scene that happens next? Could somebody really believe that? And then I would sit back and think, if I truly believed in God the way I do, yes, it could easily have happened and did happen, and many times in the Bible. So as you read the book the first time through, some people have gone back and reread it because when they have read it the first time, it elevates their faith. And then read it the second time, it has a different meaning.
I hear you.
And that's a God thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the way it is with the Bible. You think you know something, and then you find a deeper meaning.
Absolutely.
Later on, whether it be through something that comes on you in your life or a situation. And I found that to be true in my life, that I thought I knew something, and it was just skimming the surface until something affected me in a way that I could see it a little deeper, Amen. And I can give you a big amen on what you said there, too. Well, we're going to let you get into the studio.
All right.
And we're going to have your family sing.
Yes, sir.
And we'll just, I'm going to go ahead and go over these dates.
All right.
Did you get everything?
Yes, sir. May the Lord play through us in spite of us.
Well, I pray the same prayer for you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, don't forget, he's going to be at the Festival of Faith in Valdez, North Carolina on August 9th. They'll also be at the Renaissance Fair in Huntsville, North Carolina on November the 16th and 17th. And here locally, you can see them this Saturday, a book signing at Barnes&Noble on Kingston Pike between Winston Road and downtown West Boulevard. That's out there in West Knoxville. Many of you people know it's in the West Hills area by just a little west of Westtown Mall, or West Hills Mall, Westtown Mall. That's going to be this Saturday, July 27th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So join them out there and get this book. And we're going to turn it over to them in the studio for some music.